July 17, 1973, Virginia. The sun beat down on the driveway as Oliver Lawson loaded the last suitcase into the trunk of the Plymouth station wagon. His wife, Catherine, stood in the doorway of their split-level home, checking her handbag for passports and travel documents. "Kids," she called into the house. "If you're not in the car in 30 seconds, we're leaving without you." Oliver smiled at his wife's empty threat. This family vacation had been planned for months. 2 weeks at Virginia Beach, their first real holiday since he'd taken the accounting position at the Defense Department 3 years ago. He needed this break. The constant pressure of maintaining pristine security clearance while managing department budgets had left him exhausted. "Daddy, will there be jellyfish?" Their 6-year-old daughter Penny appeared beside him, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. "Maybe a few, sweetheart, but they usually stay away from where people swim." 9-year-old Michael raced past them, diving into the back seat. "I call window seat." Catherine joined Oliver by the car. "Did you remember to cancel the newspaper?" "Yes, dear," he said, checking his watch. "We should hit the road. I want to make it before dark." As they pulled away from the curb, Oliver noticed a dark sedan parked 2 houses down. The driver appeared to be reading a newspaper, but something about the man's posture seemed off. Oliver shook his head. He was being paranoid again, the consequence of working in a building where half the employees had security clearances and the other half wanted them. 3 hours into their drive, Catherine suggested they stop at Howard Johnson's for lunch. The children bolted toward the playground while Catherine and Oliver settled into a booth by the window. "You seem tense," Catherine said, studying his face. "Is everything all right at work?" Oliver hesitated. There had been rumors of a security breach in his department. 2 analysts had been questioned, but he couldn't tell Catherine that, not the details anyway. "Just the usual end-of-quarter stress," he said, forcing a smile. "Nothing that 2 weeks of sand and surf won't cure." A waitress approached their table. "Good afternoon, folks. What can I get you today?" Oliver glanced up and froze. The woman was unfamiliar, but the small pin on her collar, a red star barely visible beneath her name tag, sent a jolt of recognition through him. It matched a symbol in a security briefing he'd received months ago. She caught his gaze and smiled. "Our special today is the clam plate." "We'll need a few more minutes," Catherine said, not noticing Oliver's sudden discomfort. When the waitress walked away, Oliver excused himself to the restroom. Inside, he splashed water on his face, trying to calm his racing heart. He was being ridiculous. A red star could mean anything, a decorative pin, a service award. It didn't have to be what he feared. Back at the table, the waitress returned with water glasses. "Have we decided?" she asked cheerfully. 2 hamburger plates for the kids," Catherine said. "I'll have the tuna melt." "And for you, sir?" The waitress looked directly at Oliver. "The club sandwich," he said, watching her carefully. As she jotted down their order, she casually remarked, "You folks headed to the beach?" "I hear Sandbridge is lovely this time of year." Oliver stiffened. They hadn't mentioned their destination, and Sandbridge was a small, secluded area south of the main Virginia beach attractions, exactly where they had reservations. "We're heading to Virginia Beach," Catherine replied innocently. "The main strip." The waitress nodded. "Well, enjoy your trip. The weather should be perfect." When she left, Catherine squeezed Oliver's hand. "You look like you've seen a ghost. What's wrong?" "Nothing," he lied. "Just tired from driving." Throughout lunch, Oliver watched the waitress interact with other customers. She seemed perfectly normal, but twice he caught her glancing in their direction. When they paid the bill, she handed him the change with a receipt tucked underneath. "Have a wonderful vacation," she said with unusual emphasis. In the car, while Catherine was helping the children with their seatbelts, Oliver examined the receipt. On the back, written in small, neat handwriting, Cottage 17, 8 p.m. Come alone. He quickly crumpled the paper and shoved it into his pocket. The beach cottage was exactly as advertised. Weathered cedar shingles, screened porch, and a view of the Atlantic. The children ran immediately to the water's edge, while Catherine began unpacking groceries they'd purchased on the way. I might take a walk later, Oliver mentioned casually. Stretch my legs after the drive. Catherine nodded absently. Dinner around 6? Nothing fancy. Just sandwiches tonight. At 7:45 p.m., with the children engrossed in a board game and Catherine reading on the porch, Oliver announced he was going for his walk. Don't be too long, Catherine called as he left. And be careful near the dunes after dark. Cottage 17 was a quarter-mile down the beach, identical to theirs except for its number painted on a piece of driftwood. Oliver approached cautiously, scanning the beach in both directions. It appeared deserted except for a few distant couples walking along the shoreline. He knocked on the door. No answer. He tried the knob and to his surprise it turned easily. Hello? He called, stepping inside. The cottage was sparsely furnished but immaculate. A single lamp illuminated the living area. On the coffee table sat a folder with Operation Sandcastle, typed across the top. Please close the door, Mr. Lawson. Oliver spun around. A tall man with salt and pepper hair stood in the kitchen doorway, holding 2 glasses of what appeared to be scotch. Who are you? Oliver demanded. My name is Victor. Please, sit down. The man had a faint accent, Eastern European, possibly Russian, but nearly perfect English. We have much to discuss. I'm leaving, Oliver said, turning toward the door. Your security clearance was upgraded last month, Victor said calmly. You now have access to NATO deployment scenarios for the Baltic region. This makes you very valuable, Mr. Lawson. Oliver stopped. How do you know that? The same way we know about your gambling debts from college. The ones you never told Catherine about. The ones you paid off with money borrowed from your father-in-law, who still doesn't know you lied about using it for a down payment on your house. Oliver felt the blood drain from his face. What do you want? Just information. Small pieces over time. Nothing that would hurt anyone directly. In exchange, we offer financial compensation. Enough to put both your children through college. You're KGB, Oliver said flatly. Victor smiled. Let's say I represent parties interested in maintaining global stability through information sharing. This is treason. This is pragmatism. The Cold War cannot be won, Mr. Lawson, only managed. Both sides need to understand each other to avoid catastrophe. Oliver thought of Catherine and the children waiting in their cottage. And if I refuse? Then you walk out that door and return to your family. We never speak again. Victor paused. But someone at the Department of Defense receives an anonymous tip about your financial improprieties before joining government service. Your clearance is revoked, your position terminated. Your family suffers. Oliver's mind raced. I need time to think. Of course, but not too much time. This opportunity expires when your vacation does. Over the next 3 days, Oliver went through the motions of a family vacation while his mind was in constant turmoil. He built sandcastles with the children, took long walks with Catherine, and tried to appear normal while considering Victor's proposal. On the 4th morning, while jogging along the beach, he spotted a man fishing from the shore, the same man who had been sitting 2 houses down from theirs in Virginia. The man nodded at him as he passed. They were watching him. That afternoon, as the family returned from a mini-golf excursion, Oliver noticed a payphone outside the small grocery store where they stopped for ice cream. I forgot to pick up sunscreen, he told Catherine. You take the kids back, and I'll walk home. Inside the store, he purchased sunscreen, then stepped into the payphone booth. He had memorized a number from his security briefing, an emergency contact for suspected foreign approaches. A woman answered on the second ring. Weather Service. I need to report unusual conditions at Sandbridge Beach, Oliver said, reciting the coded phrase. There was a pause. What's your name and location? Oliver Lawson, Defense Department Accounting Division. I'm at Sandbridge Beach with my family. Stay where you are, Mr. Lawson. Someone will meet you in 30 minutes. Blue windbreaker, reading a newspaper. Oliver hung up and waited, sitting on a bench outside the store, the sunscreen clutched in his hand. 27 minutes later, a man in a blue windbreaker approached, newspaper tucked under his arm. Walk with me, Mr. Lawson, the man said quietly. My name is Agent Russell, FBI. As they strolled toward the beach, Oliver explained everything, the waitress, the note, the meeting with Victor, the threats. You did the right thing coming to us, Russell said. But now we need your help. My family will be protected, Russell assured him. But we need to understand who these people are and what they're after. Would you be willing to play along? Just temporarily, under our guidance. You want me to be a double agent? Oliver asked incredulously. We want you to help us identify a KGB network operating on U.S. soil. This could be bigger than just you, Mr. Lawson. That evening, Catherine noticed Oliver's distraction as they prepared dinner. What's going on with you? She asked after the children had gone to bed. You've been somewhere else since we arrived. Oliver had always prided himself on his honesty with Catherine. Now he was caught between national security and his marriage vows. I ran into someone from work, he said carefully. There's a problem with one of my projects. I may need to make some calls this week. Catherine studied his face. Is that all? That's all, he lied, hating himself for it. The next day, Oliver returned to Cottage 17. Victor was waiting with another man, younger, with hard eyes and a military bearing. This is Nikolai, Victor said. He will be your primary contact after I leave. I've been thinking about your offer, Oliver said, trying to keep his voice steady. What exactly would you want me to provide? To start, budget allocations for NATO defense systems. Personnel rotations for key intelligence positions. Nothing classified as top secret. We understand you don't have access to that level. Oliver nodded slowly. And the payment? $50,000 per year, deposited in a Swiss account. Accessible after you leave government service. How would we communicate? Victor smiled, apparently pleased with Oliver's practical questions. Nikolai will explain our protocols. For the next hour, Nikolai instructed Oliver on dead drops, recognition signals, and basic tradecraft. The FBI had prepared Oliver with just enough knowledge to make his questions seem genuine but not suspicious. Your first assignment is simple, Nikolai concluded. The budgetary overview for the coming fiscal year. Defense allocations only. I can get that, Oliver confirmed. When do you want it? There's a public library in Alexandria, 3 blocks from your office. Children's section. Copy of The Hardy Boys on the 3rd shelf. First Tuesday of next month. Oliver returned to his family cottage feeling contaminated. Agent Russell was waiting for his report that evening, meeting him during another walk on the beach. Good work, Russell said after Oliver recounted the meeting. We'll set up surveillance on the library drop site. In the meantime, act normally. Enjoy the rest of your vacation. The following days passed in a blur of forced normalcy. Oliver built sandcastles with Penny, taught Michael to body surf, and tried to be present with Catherine during romantic evening walks. But his mind constantly returned to the web of deception he'd entered. On their final night at the beach, Catherine confronted him after the children were asleep. Something happened here, she said, her voice firm but gentle. You're not yourself, Oliver. I'm your wife. Whatever it is, we face it together. Oliver looked into her eyes and made a decision. I was approached by someone, he began carefully. Someone who wanted information from my work. I reported it to security. Catherine's eyes widened. You mean like a spy? Something like that, he admitted. I can't tell you more. But I'm helping the authorities handle it. Are we in danger? Her voice trembled slightly. No, he assured her. They're watching over us. But I need you to trust me and not mention this to anyone. Not even the kids. Catherine took his hand. I always knew your boring accounting job would lead to international intrigue, she joked weakly. Promise me one thing. No unnecessary risks. I promise, he said, pulling her close. On the drive home, Oliver noticed they were being followed. Not by the KGB but by an FBI surveillance team providing discreet protection. The family returned to their normal routine, but nothing felt normal to Oliver anymore. 3 weeks later, he prepared the document package Nikolai had requested. The FBI had provided sanitized information, real enough to be convincing but nothing that would compromise national security. Oliver visited the library during his lunch break, sliding the envelope into the designated book. 2 days later, a man he'd never seen before sat next to him on his commuter bus. The water at Sandbridge was perfect this year, the man said quietly. Oliver recognized the contact phrase. Yes, much warmer than usual. The man nodded. There's been a change of plans. Victor wants to meet personally. Tomorrow night, the Lincoln Memorial, 8 p.m. This deviation wasn't in the FBI playbook. Oliver felt a surge of panic. I have plans with my family tomorrow. Cancel them, the man said simply, then stood and exited at the next stop. That evening, Oliver called the emergency number Russell had given him. They want an unscheduled meeting, he explained. Something's wrong. They might be testing you, Russell replied. Or they might have detected our surveillance. Either way, we need to proceed. The meeting will be covered. Just follow the protocols we discussed. The next evening, Oliver told Catherine he needed to work late. Another lie in a growing collection. The Lincoln Memorial was crowded with tourists even as dusk fell. Oliver climbed the steps, scanning for familiar faces. He spotted Victor sitting on a bench, feeding pigeons like an ordinary visitor. Walk with me, Victor said when Oliver approached. We have a problem, Mr. Lawson. What problem? Oliver tried to keep his voice casual. The information you provided. It wasn't what we asked for. Oliver's heart raced. It was exactly what you asked for. Budget allocations. Sanitized. Redacted. Victor's voice hardened. Did you really think we wouldn't notice? I gave you what I had access to. Victor stopped walking. No, you gave us what the FBI told you to give us. The world seemed to stop. Oliver fought to keep his expression neutral. I don't know what you're talking about. Please, Victor scoffed. We've been watching you since you made the phone call from Sandbridge. Amateur move, Mr. Lawson. Oliver glanced around, looking for Russell or any sign of FBI surveillance. So what happens now? Now, Victor said calmly. We proceed to Phase 2. Phase 2. Your family vacation wasn't just about recruitment, Mr. Lawson. It was an assessment. A training ground. I don't understand. Victor smiled. Catherine does, though. Oliver felt as though the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. What are you talking about? Your wife has been one of ours for 11 years, Mr. Lawson. Since before she met you. That's impossible, Oliver stammered. Catherine is from Ohio. Her father is a Methodist minister. Catherine Jensen died in a car accident in 1961, Victor said. Claudia Genovskaya assumed her identity the following year. She was placed specifically to meet you, marry you, and establish a position of trust. Oliver's mind reeled with memories. Catherine's occasional unexplained absences to visit her sister, her surprising knowledge of European politics, the way she'd encouraged him to apply for the Defense Department position. "I don't believe you," he whispered. The birthmark on her right shoulder blade, the one shaped like Florida. Ask her about the time she broke her arm falling from a tree when she was 12. Watch her face carefully when she answers. Oliver felt physically ill. "Your recruitment was a test for her," Victor continued, "to see if her cover was still viable, if she could handle a complicated operation involving her American husband. She performed admirably, though she was quite concerned when you contacted the FBI. The children are yours biologically," Victor assured him, "but they've been raised by one of our best deep-cover operatives. They'll have interesting choices when they're older." Oliver's legs nearly gave out. A nearby tourist, no, an FBI agent, moved closer, pretending to photograph the monument. "Why are you telling me this?" Oliver asked. "Because now you have a choice, Mr. Lawson. Continue working with the FBI, and Claudia will be extracted within 48 hours. You'll never see her again, and you'll spend years being debriefed and investigated. Or what? Or you accept that the woman you love has been living a dual life, and you help protect her. We ask nothing more of you than to keep her secret. No espionage, no betrayal of your country. Just silence." "And if I refuse both options?" Victor shrugged. "Then this conversation never happened. But Claudia will know, you know. She has contingencies in place. She's very thorough." Oliver looked out over the National Mall, the Washington Monument illuminated against the darkening sky. Everything he believed about his life had just been shattered. "I need proof," he said finally. Victor handed him a small envelope. Photographs of Claudia during training in Kiev, 1960. Her real parents. Her KGB documentation. Oliver tucked the envelope into his jacket. "I need time to think." "Until tomorrow," Victor agreed. "Then we need your answer." That night, Oliver watched Catherine, or Claudia, as she helped the children with their homework. Her laugh, her gestures, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear. Was it all calculated? A performance honed by years of training? After the children were in bed, she joined him on the couch. "Rough day at work?" she asked, rubbing his shoulders. "Catherine," he said slowly, "tell me about when you broke your arm as a child." Her hands paused for just a moment, so brief he might have imagined it. "Why are you asking about that?" "Just curious. You never talk much about your childhood." "I fell from the oak tree in our backyard," she said smoothly. "I was 10, not 12. Dad had to carry me to Dr. Wilson's office because Mom was at church. The details were perfect, but her eyes showed something else. Recognition, calculation. Is something wrong, Oliver?" she asked, her voice concerned but with a new undertone he'd never noticed before. "No," he lied. "Just tired." In their bedroom, while Catherine was brushing her teeth, Oliver opened the envelope Victor had given him. The woman in the black and white photographs was unmistakably a younger version of his wife, standing in front of buildings with Cyrillic signage, training with other agents, receiving a medal from a Soviet official. When she returned, he quickly hid the photos under his pillow. "Oliver," she said, sitting beside him on the bed, "tell me what's bothering you. Please." He looked into her eyes. The same eyes he'd gazed into on their wedding day, the same eyes that had welled with tears when their children were born. "Do you love me?" he asked suddenly. She seemed taken aback by the question. "Of course I love you. Why would you ask that? Just answer one more question, and be honest. Was any of it real?" Catherine's expression changed subtly. Her posture straightened almost imperceptibly. When she spoke, her voice carried the faintest trace of an accent he'd never heard before. "All of it was real, Oliver. That's the problem with deep cover. The feelings become real. They sat in silence, the truth finally between them. What happens now? Oliver asked eventually. That depends on you, she replied. Victor told you everything, I assume? Enough. He paused. The children are yours, ours, she said firmly. They know nothing. They are innocent. And us, Catherine Claudia, took his hand. I was sent to observe you, to secure a position close to someone with access to American defense infrastructure. But I chose to love you. That wasn't in my orders. How can I believe anything you say now? You can't, she admitted. Not completely. But ask yourself this. In 11 years, have I ever pushed you to compromise your principles? Have I ever asked about your work? Have I ever been anything but a loving wife and mother? Oliver thought back over their marriage. She was right. She had never probed for information, never encouraged him to do anything unethical. What was the purpose, then? He asked. Insurance, she explained. Having assets in place should they ever be needed. Most of us live our entire lives without being activated beyond basic intelligence gathering. Oliver stood and paced the room. I should report this. All of it. You could, she agreed. I've always known that was a possibility. What would happen to you? Best case? Prisoner exchange years later. Worst case. She didn't finish the sentence. And the children? They would grow up knowing their mother was a Soviet spy who lied about everything. Is that what you want for them? Oliver had no answer. The next morning, he called in sick to work and went to a payphone far from their neighborhood. Agent Russell answered immediately. I need to meet. It's urgent. They met in a quiet corner of the National Gallery. Oliver had chosen it specifically, a public place where he couldn't be easily recorded. Victor claims my wife is a KGB illegal, he said without preamble. Deep cover. Place to marry me for access. Russell didn't look surprised. We've considered that possibility. Oliver stared at him. You knew. We had suspicions. There were inconsistencies in her background that flagged during your security clearance process. But nothing concrete enough to act on. And you didn't tell me? Oliver felt a surge of anger. We were watching, gathering evidence. Russell leaned forward. This is actually a breakthrough, Oliver. With your help, we can uncover an entire network of illegals. What would happen to her? Russell hesitated. She'd be arrested, interrogated, eventually deported or imprisoned, depending on what information she provides. And my children would be cared for, Russell said, though his tone lacked conviction. Oliver made his decision then, though he wouldn't reveal it yet. I need time to think, to gather evidence of my own. Russell nodded. Understood. But don't wait too long. And Oliver, be careful. These people are professionals. That evening, Oliver returned home to find Catherine preparing dinner as usual. The children were setting the table, arguing about whose turn it was to clear dishes. He watched them, his family real or manufactured, and felt a profound ache in his chest. After the children were asleep, he joined Catherine on the porch swing. They sat in silence for several minutes. I met with the FBI today, he finally said. She nodded, unsurprised. And they want me to help expose you, to gather evidence. Will you? Her voice was steady, but he could sense her tension. Oliver looked out at their quiet suburban street. Tell me one thing first. Did you ever pass information about me or my work to your handlers? No, she said firmly. Never. My assignment was long-term positioning only. I reported on general political sentiment, public information. Nothing classified, nothing that came from you. Oliver believed her, though he wasn't sure why. I won't help them, he said finally. But I won't help you either. I want us, you and me, to disappear from both sides, to protect our children. Catherine stared at him. That's not possible. Both sides would hunt us. Not if they think we're dead. Over the next 3 days, they formulated a plan. Catherine contacted Victor through predetermined emergency channels, explaining that Oliver had become suspicious and FBI surveillance had increased. She requested extraction for herself only, suggesting the children remain with their father. Meanwhile, Oliver told Russell that he needed more time to gather evidence against his wife, but that he suspected an extraction attempt was imminent. On August 5, 1973, Oliver and Catherine Lawson left their children with her sister, actually another deep-cover KGB agent, for what they described as a second honeymoon to the Caribbean. They boarded a private charter boat in Miami, a boat that would be reported missing 2 days later, presumed sunk in a sudden storm. In reality, they disembarked in Cuba, where Catherine's KGB contacts helped them secure new identities and passage to Austria. From there, using funds Catherine had maintained in a Swiss account, they traveled to Australia. The children were told their parents had died in a boating accident. They were raised by Catherine's sister in Chicago, far from the suspicions of either intelligence agency. December 12, 1991, Sydney, Australia. Oliver Hayes, formerly Oliver Lawson, read the newspaper headline with a mixture of emotions. Soviet Union dissolves, Cold War ends. Beside him at their kitchen table, Claire Hayes, once Catherine Lawson, once Claudia Genovskaya, poured coffee into their cups. It's really over, she said quietly. Oliver nodded. 18 years in hiding, and now it ends with a paragraph in the newspaper. Their children, now adults, had been told the truth 5 years earlier. Michael had eventually forgiven them, even visiting twice with his wife and young son. Penny had never replied to their letter. Do you think it's safe to go back? Claire asked, the question they'd avoided for years. I don't know, Oliver admitted. Both sides probably think we're dead, but records exist. Questions remain unanswered. Claire covered his hand with hers. Do you regret it? Our decision. Oliver thought about the life they'd built in Australia, modest but peaceful. He thought about the moral compromises, the lies, the abandoned parents and friends who had mourned them. No, he said finally. We protected the children from becoming pawns. We chose each other over ideology. In a war of opposing absolutes, maybe that was the only human choice. They sat together, two aging spies who had chosen love over loyalty, watching the sun rise over a world where the great conflict that had defined their lives was finally ending, leaving them as curious artifacts of a bygone era. Two ordinary people who had once been at the center of an extraordinary deception.